And welcome to the stream. I have no idea if that will catch that, but hopefully
It did.
we are live. It did.
I told you we need a countdown thing, and if you're not going to make one, I am going to be that thing.
That's absolutely fine. Now, I hope everybody can hear us. I am looking forward to this evening. We've had lots of fun over the last week or so. I've been playing around with assets, and a bit of a preface before we dive into Blender and try and work out some of the fun bits we're going on. So Yann was like, "Oh, have you got those arch pieces?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." It was quite a busy day, and I made lots of assumptions. And
okay, so that's kind of what happened. I said, "Have you got any of those arch pieces you showed me so I can make this look prettier?" It went, "Well, they're not ready." Like, I know they're not ready. Just can I have them a little early? It went, "Okay, but they're not ready." I know they're not ready.
They were more than not ready. Yes, I went through a process that I thought was bulletproof, and I didn't check before clicking export. Those are the two main things. But it turned out that
it was bulletproof, but it wasn't Mikey proof.
No, it wasn't. So I caused Yann a little bit of extra work trying to get his assets all sorted. Evening, Roderick.
Hello, Roderick. Well, in fact, what I ended up doing was importing them back into Blender and fixing them.
But I thought I was coming up with some ideas for the stream, and I thought actually this would be a nice kind of a behind the scenes as well as anything, but also a nice trip through trying to diagnose things, trying to work out why it behaved in the way it did, despite me thinking that it would be absolutely fine.
I keep twitching back and forth because my neighbors are doing some sort of gardening with dragon with indigestion. I'm not sure what's happening. I was wondering, do you want to show them the thing running beforehand so we can then go and see what that looks like?
Oh, yeah, that's a brilliant idea. I will just load up Discord, download God 04, and just get everything ready because
that thing. Okay.
I'm well prepared for the stream. Don't worry.
So for those who don't know, these assets are part of the they are standalone assets that we're also going to be providing, but they're also part of the God 04 Your Action RPG, which we kickstarted almost 2 years ago now. And we were waiting for God 04 to get the position. It's now in a position working on the Godot courses, but of course we need the assets, and they came just at the time when Mikey's life is full of all kinds of things. So there's a lot of Mikey, can I have that? Mikey, can I have that? It's like, I'm waking up. Can I have the things? Yeah, they're not ready.
I warned you, they're not ready.
And they're not ready. Like, that's fine. What's interesting, though, is after today, Mikey and I were looking at them, and I was saying, there's this, and this. He said, yeah, but I told you they're not ready. It's like, no, they're not ready. I don't know how it happened, and I think there's a bug in your export process. Oh, okay, let's look at them.
It totally is a bug in the export process.
Yeah.
Right, I'm just extracting the thing. I managed to download it. So this is very early. That's important to say. And it's going to take a few moments to just unzip. So
what's happening is we have a 10 by 10 grid of tiles. Each tile is either a corridor piece or a room. They're procedurally generated. He can redo them by pressing tab. Right now, you can't look up and down. It's a first-person view just for now, so we can see what it looks like. And I put in some pretty sparkly things so you can light up the corridor in front of you. We have volumetric fog. We have dynamic lighting. We have dynamic shadows. There's a lot of optimization happening. A lot of occlusion culling and other fancy things. So, yeah.
So I am going to share my screen with you so you've got a real-time version of what's going on. And I'm going to flip over to just my screen. Oh, it's got me in it as well. We don't need me for the moment. So we're just importing this.
Unknown user. Is that your
Sorry?
screen share? I've got a little pop-up here. Not visible. Unknown user.
Might be the screen share, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think my screen share's got a name, and that's why it comes up. But you guys should now see Godot importing some stuff. In fact, I'm going to put my face on here for the moment.
Very fun. I love watching progress bars. Don't you love watching progress
Oh,
bars?
I love it. Oh, look at that. I can't really share
One
that.
in the chat if you like watching progress.
I think we need an F in the chat to pay respects to the...
It's a bitwise operator, so no one's typing right now.
Actually, Yann might still be a little echoey. I've just sorted that out. All right, so we've got... we can just run this, can't we?
Yes, we can.
Ba-ba-da-ba. And I can press tab at any time, is that right? To regenerate at any point?
You absolutely can.
So
when I'm not recording, I can hit a standard, a nice solid at 60 frames per second. I don't know what you're getting right now. You might need to turn on occlusion culling, Mikey.
I'll be fine. It seems perfectly smooth to me.
I mean, it's capped at 60, so you should be fine. Yeah. I can't see exactly what you guys are seeing. So, like, I can see the pictures, but the updates are slower. And yeah, it looks pretty.
So these are some of the more
early
ornate,
testy things.
Well, one of the things, and this is really interesting. Whilst we were playing around, I've been modelling these in a kind of a bit of a vacuum with
right,
and I can walk through it in Blender, and we'll
I mean, that's why I wanted to show it to you, right? So you can see what it feels like in world.
And when I was walking along here, I'm like, I know there's a ceiling, but it feels like there should be arches. There feels like there should be detail on the ceiling. Now I know
that was actually something I was going to bring up with you. It was like, he's got a lot of work. Let's show it to him and let him come up with the idea.
Right. So we got a ceiling here, but it looks like it's going into the void, and I think we can do better than that. I think we can have like a vaulted ceiling and things like that. But because I've done the walkthrough within Blender, it's it's kind of not the same as running around in Godot. And this is obviously a first-person view, and the game's not going to have that. So it'll be ever so slightly different.
Right, and that's the other thing, is that the camera angle might mean that you don't notice the ceiling the same way.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, all you have to do is point the camera down a little and have the camera behind the character, and all of a sudden you've got a very, very different feel. And you're quite...
So right now we have, I think, 5 different types of room, so you're going to see a lot of repetition.
Yeah. This is just playing around with the really early stuff. And I've not gotten... Oh, no. I found a dead end. Here we go. There's a piece that I'll show you in a few minutes, but here's a piece where there should be this lower part on it. That didn't come out.
It is there. It's behind that wall.
Or maybe it's invisible because the normals are the wrong way around. But anyway, there's lots of...
No, I fixed the normals. These are not ready for prime time. Like, there's a lot of extra geometry and stuff that is going to have to be removed, but you can't remove it yet because we might need to do stuff with it. So
yes, and we'll be showing you that in a bit. So
you can kick that lid if you want, by the way.
I keep trying, don't I? I got stuck. Oh, almost. I got stuck earlier. Oh,
I mean, almost. It's gone.
Oh, I'm stuck. I'm stuck.
Why do you keep going?
I'm brilliant at managing to get stuck on this. It looks absolutely fantastic. So I can hit tab at any time and regenerate, which is pretty awesome.
Right, and there is a way we could set it up so you can see from the top-down view and see what it looks like. Here we go, throne room. This is the bit I've been trying to do today. I've been trying to move the rooms from an array of files to a bunch of resources, and those resources can include what layouts they'll accept. Like the throne room should only accept one door right in front of the throne.
We've got some physics objects in here.
Yes, and once I've got that done, I'm going to make some more props. I want to make the props a bit more intelligent and modular. So if you have a certain type of table, it'll have a few different types of prop layout on it that it will accept.
And
that's the idea.
Do you like the way the particles are bouncing on the floor?
I do. I like my particle collisions.
So this reminds me of a game that I keep forgetting the name of recently that I played. I mean, we could make this at this point some sort of gothic Wolfenstein clone.
Oh, easy. I mean, yeah. Listening to this playing this while listening to my Spotify soundtrack, and it something kicks on the heavy industrial playlist. It's like, yeah, this could be a shoot 'em up. Yeah. Also, put down the top-down thing. We have a really cool gothic Pac-Man.
That's very true. So yeah, wanted to show you how the assets look in situ and just kind of getting stuck in the world. Why not? I want to knock this off. There we go. Can I get inside this?
Nope.
Ah, okay. You were wise with your collisions. Oh, that's the step-up room.
Volumetric. Yep.
Pretty.
There is also an exit room, but it's quite hard to find on a
It is
10 by 10 grid.
It is hard to find. Let's show them the exit room. So if I recall correctly, I need to be in the tiles script, and then I can come down here and this one here, isn't it? So if I make this really, really small, he says, brilliant.
You should teach the coding course.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing the Python thing at the moment, so.
Good evening, Daz. How are you, mate?
Hey, Daz. So this is a much smaller one, so it's going to be a lot easier to find the end room.
He says.
It must be here somewhere. There it is. So you may recall the giant skull from before, and then this will obviously load up the next dungeon down, which we could just fake at the moment. I could do that, and no one would be any the wiser.
I mean, I was going to fake it with a corridor and stuff. Right now, it's just, yeah.
So yes, it's coming on. Awesome, and it makes such a difference seeing the assets in
I tell you,
life.
God of War's SDFGI and volumetrics and the new particle systems make such a huge difference. Like just the look and feel of this thing as it is. Like these walls, not the curvy ones, but the ones in the rooms, are very, very much placeholder, but they don't look ready. Right? Suddenly they don't match everything else. Like they're too regular, too clean.
Yeah, so these are deliberately regular and clean, and then I'm using a few tricks in Blender to get stuff like this, which is obviously much more along the lines of what we want. That's a bit messy.
There is, by the way, a volumetric fog node at the bottom of the stairs, which is why it's so cloudy with lots of little god rays.
Yeah, Yann, I'm stuck.
How? I mean, I know how. That I put a simple convex collider on the sarcophagus rather than just make it a box.
Yeah.
So there is stuff to get stuck on. You can, in theory, go higher than 10 by 10, but 20 by 20 takes forever to generate, and it's not worth it. We don't have that many rooms. It's not interesting yet.
No. And of course, we could change the frequency of the rooms and all the rest of the.
Go for it.
All the fun.
Rare room charts currently isn't connected.
Right.
Because I don't have.
Let me turn the screen back on for people.
Yep.
So is that these export variables here?
Yes. So, I mean, you do it in the inspector if you want. They're export variables.
Nice.
So click on tiles.
So this is 25% of the squares are going to be. Is that how that works? Okay, so I could lower this down to 2, make this larger again.
Yeah,
100 by 100.
I wouldn't do 100 by 100.
No, that would be like a kilometer square. But this should be primarily corridors, right?
Yeah.
In theory.
Yeah.
Which is a completely different feel of game. There was a random one earlier that did have a ton of corridors on it. And there's something down there. I mean, it might actually be easier to find the end this way, but
I imagine so.
But it does feel.
Oh, it's a library. They haven't seen the library. Oh, they have seen the library. Never mind. They've seen it.
But just by changing those parameters, it's amazing how different this feels. That we're not. I mean,
there's things like we can change the color of the torches and the color of the ambient light, and that will massively change how it works, as well as the color of the volumetric fog.
Found another library. It might be the same one for all I know.
Which is great when you're trying to create a more like the deeper down the dungeon you go, the less natural the lighting gets, that kind of thing, right? Like a visual signifier of where you are.
And also you could increase different levels. I mean, you could literally make a labyrinth like this where it's very difficult. I don't know how fun it will be. That's a different question. But
I mean, the other thing is there's an erase fraction, which you could go into. And that is, so if the erase fraction is 0, there is only a single path. There are no junctions.
This one here.
Yeah.
Oh, so this would give you a very linear
experience.
Don't
do it here. Don't do it in the inspector.
Oh, yes. Otherwise,
then all you have to do is press reset. You won't lose anything.
Yeah. -86. Nice. So if this is set as 0, we should just be able to follow it through to the end, right?
No, you did the wrong one. Come back. Now you have 0 rooms for the same amount of junctions. You want the erased fraction.
Sorry, this one here. There we go. So that's 0, and this.
And now you just have a, yeah.
And hopefully that'll load up. And now we should have room after room after room, basically. But only one path through. So
only one way through. A tutorial.
Yes, essentially. Maybe we would make a tutorial room.
And mostly, like, these rooms are nowhere near finished, and that's without all the props and things in them. Like, this is just me playing with, okay, what do we have? What can I do to make this interesting? Like, the green pulsing light. Make sure the library feels a little different. The volumetric fog is so thick, I can't make the library feel less.
Oh.
There's red light in there, so the smoke looks red.
There should only be one path, but there are 2.
Yeah. Well, no.
This could lead to a dead end.
The algorithm could go to the end and then come back. Every square will be filled.
Yeah.
But there's no erased walls to make more junctions. Sorry,
that makes sense. Yeah, it's the way the algorithm works.
Yeah.
So yes, these are the assets all in place, and I don't know how. Well, I probably should have picked.
These are the current, very early prototype assets in place. They're not all in place. They're not, finished, but yes.
I do like this.
Getting the occlusion to work was fun. Getting the shadows to work properly was fun. Getting the physics to work with the benches, just getting rigid bodies to accept that they're being kicked by a character body and still able to move afterwards, just took a little bit of extra work.
So I'm going to end that bit there.
Yep.
So we learned a lot by actually getting it into the game.
Yes.
And now we can start having a look at what happened with Blender itself. So I'm going to take... Dum, dum, dum.
Meow, meow, meow. Oh, it's me. Hello, me.
Yeah, it's you. All right, so I'm going to switch this mainly to a screen plus me down here. And if I end up being in the way, then we'll just sort it out. So we've got a scene here that's got a ton of assets in, as you can see. Lots of different floor variations. And this is like my playground in here. When I finished in the playground, I build things up. Like this is a test of all the corridors together before I do anything else. And then it was a matter of making the corridors. And then these ones here, then they're kind of the solidified versions ready for export. Because I don't want to export however many objects. Let's pick a complex one. Like this here. That is 51 objects. That would be... well, 51 draw calls anyway, despite anything else. And we don't want that. We just want one object coming out. So, and that's per material and everything else. So we do need to watch out for things like that. So a couple of the things that Yann had to come in and fix, and these are learning lessons for me as well. I have assumed that if I was above my model like this and I go ahead and highlight, it will select all of the objects. That's what I've been used to. Now, I don't know if it's a bug in the recent version on my particular computer or anything else, but it was leaving stuff behind. So Yann was getting like this piece here with these bottom bits missing. And I'm pretty sure if we have a look at the dead end... no, I've actually missed something there. There you go. So that wasn't a mistake. That's just me being forgetful. And if did you say they might have been on the other side of the wall? Oh, no, it's not. So yeah. Again, it's almost a balance point, and we'll get to a few other things in a bit that... yes. It totally did, yeah. And there's some workflow that you can go through, but it ends up being incredibly destructive, and then it's really difficult to carry on working with your project. So let's zoom out a little, undo my deletion there, so I'm not playing around with that. When you're exporting into a game engine, a lot of game engines do backface culling. So they won't render the opposite side of a face. Now, you can turn that off, and you can turn it off in most game engines. You can make things double-sided, but then you double the amount of processing that needs to be done for your scene. So in Blender, under your overlays section, you can actually turn on something called face orientation. Now you can turn on backface culling under your viewport shading options. However, whilst that is useful, I prefer a bright color staring me in the face. So under viewport overlays, we've got this face orientation. And if we take a couple of examples, so let's take the T-junction example, which should be that and this selection here. I'm going to press / to isolate these two, and then we can hop between them. Let's focus back in on here. So on here, you can see that we've got all of the pieces, and I've gone diligently through and made sure that various parts of it are all facing the right way. Now, you may be asking yourself, oh, what's going on here? Why is there geometry behind geometry? Well, if I hide this out of the way, you'll see that that is actually the back wall to that. And the easiest way of making sure that it's the right size and everything is just to have a simple plane behind anything. It's not actually on top. It's not overlapping geometry. Well, I suppose it is a bit higher up, but for the sake of the viewer, it isn't actually overlapping anywhere. It's there, and then we've got this bit at the background, and then we've got another bit here at the foreground. Now, you'll probably notice as we go through, and I'll talk about how things are set up, but things are made with modifiers here to just speed up the overall process. I've got something repeating lots. Well, I'm going to use an array modifier for that, and then I can adjust things very, very quickly. It turns out here having this barrier across the middle probably isn't a good idea. That should probably wrap around, but we're discovering stuff. Yeah. The pillars on the inside of the arches. So these here, these pillars. We're just about to get on to this, because this is what ended up being exported, which is a complete mess. We've got these ones with the normals the wrong way around. We've got these with the normals the wrong way around. And as you can see here, the bits at the bottom were missing. So there's lots of things that went wrong with this that shouldn't have gone wrong. Yeah. Yeah, we can see here. It did. Yes. Now, one of the things that I would love to do during the process of this would be to go round, let's say, okay, this is a bit arduous, but you would select maybe the faces on the bottom of your models, and let's just do that real quick. There's one more left. And then we might expand that selection so that it's also doing the edges. Now, I don't know whether this would be perfect, but just bear with me with that. I'm assuming it will be perfect, and just delete those faces. And then we've got all of this extra geometry completely removed from the scene. However, we've now made modifying these incredibly difficult. And that's kind of the balance act that you have to do when trying to optimize your models. Optimization on one front should be done as you're going, and therefore you kind of make sure that you're not in a position where you've got lots of optimizing to do later on. But I learnt and have learnt several times in this project that if you try and optimize too early, it can cripple your ability to change things over or move things around. Yeah, like I've just done there. A great example here would be if I select this middle bit. Say I wanted to make this room a little less, a little less organized and straight and neat, and I wanted to rotate this. Suddenly I've lost that edge that I've deleted. I'm not about to go around and create loads and loads of new geometry. That's actually something that I would need to make sure. They should be able to hear you. Let me just turn that bit up, and they should be able to hear you.
I had muted at one point. I wasn't sure if that was actually the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is we could just remove the floor from these meshes and then bring in the floors separately, because you have different types of floor.
Yes, so the floor could be done completely separately. It's just how we go ahead
and then we
actually
can just do
moving
the
it in.
details for the normal map, that kind of thing.
Yes, in fact, that's one of the things that I do want to do, is I want to get all of these floor pieces made and then just make a normal map from them. And all being well, it should work.
And you hear me, Roderick?
Yes, I think they can hear you now.
They're saying you were saying something. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it is
hearable.
hearable. Yeah.
Hooray!
That's my fault. I'm just going to try and add. Yeah, I'm going to add another audio source. This could be dangerous.
Like a ketchup.
Like a ketchup, yeah. For some reason, you're not on my screen at the moment. So whenever I switch to my screen, you might disappear. So let me just grab.
I might disappear.
Yep.
What kind of screen are you playing with? Who gave Mikey a death ray?
Right, it's an audio input capture, isn't it? No, I don't know. I'll make sure desktop audio is turned up so that everybody can hear you. But anyway, if you go ahead and faff around with your geometry before you've actually finished, it then becomes much harder to edit. And oh, look, there's that death ray. I've gone bright red.
And there's also like, because Mikey was having to do quite a lot of rushing to get this to me, it was easy to spot. Go back to the T junction you made.
This one,
you gave me, rather. No, the one you gave me.
Yep.
Does anyone spot the extra pillar? Because it confused the poop out of me.
I found out where that came from, by the way, Yann.
I know. I was with you.
No, I actually found out the real reason it was with me. So when I was creating this and moving things around, I put this very close to this set, and I thought I moved all of them out of the way. And one of these, so I'm actually going to grab it now. Yep. One of those is actually supposed to be with this set of modular pillars that I put together, and this set is not supposed to be here either. So it was supposed to go up like that, and you've ended up with that in there. Then when I've copied this across, I've managed to pull in other bits as well. So again, part of this is me rushing, trying to get everything sorted quickly.
Part of it is the sheer size of the project.
Yeah, there are lots of assets to deal with in here, and that is just part of what has to be dealt with. But one of the things that I was not expecting was the complete mess up of this. Some of it is very, very avoidable. That was, as I said before, I was highlighting things like this. Let's pick an object that does have multiple objects. A section that does have multiple objects. And what I'm going to do at this point moving forward is, instead of just leaving them like this, and if I switch over to my outliner, we can see the wonderful naming that's going on here. This really should be in a collection, and maybe it's called walls.
Caps lock. What are we looking at?
Don't look. Nothing. There we go.
And there was also things like a doorway that had a bunch of empties in. Like it's very much a work in progress.
Oh yes, I wouldn't have removed any of the things that would necessarily be a mesh, although I can cater for that with code as well. So this might be a collection called walls, arches, and then I don't know what else might you have with it. You might have arches and then cross, because it's a crossroads. So you might do something along those lines, and then it's much easier because when you're exporting, you can keep everything together. And in your outliner, this really messy outliner, because it's also a test file, we have wall, arches, crosses. I can then right click on that and select objects. I can make sure that all of the objects of that collection are selected. I can do it manually like that, but I can also do it in code, which is super useful. However, something went wrong. Let's focus on the T-junction, because that is one that went very, very wrong.
It had a lot of interesting wrongs.
It did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that, and I don't know if I've got everything, so let's move it first. Okay, I'm going to copy that and just take it into its own scene. And by having it in its own scene, it just means we can focus on it, and I don't have to worry about accidentally. You remember a couple of weeks back, I inadvertently deleted half my project without realizing it. That was a big mistake.
I do. I'm hoping you can't hear the power washing happening outside, by the way.
I mean, I can hear it, but whether or not everybody else can. So I'm just going to move this over the center of our world, like so. And then, of course, we've got the default scenes that's got a lamp and stuff in it. I'm going to get rid of these. When I'm doing game assets, I don't tend to have the lamp in the scene and everything else, because
I'll do the lighting.
Because that's the basic thing. The lighting's not being done in Blender. So my usual process for this would be, let's duplicate the collection and then hide the original collection. Nice. So we're working on the duplicate. Now, my usual workflow for this is to select one of the objects, select all of the objects, and you can't just join them together, right? If we do that, it basically destroys it because everything inherits whatever you joined it to in terms of its modifiers and everything else. So that's not going to work. We need to go through all of these, select the one, apply the modifier, apply the modifier. Now, the workflow that I used to use for this, and again, this might be a version of Blender difference or something along those lines. I don't think it is, but I would select everything and I would convert. So if you go ahead, press F3 and go convert to mesh, what in theory should happen is all of those modifiers should be applied.
I see what you did.
Now, I can already see some Z fighting, but that should be okay unless there was a mirror somewhere and then the mirror's been applied over the top of everything else, and then it all goes wonky. So there does appear to be something going on here with part of our mesh. So we've got this bit here. Oh, look at that. There's still some duplication or some mirroring going on. Yeah, in my mind, that should have all been solidified at this point. But that's weird, right?
It doesn't explain how normals got reversed or how materials got reassigned, but it does explain the, oh, this isn't how I expected it to behave nature.
Yeah. Well, part of the joke earlier that I was saying to Yann was, I bet when I do this live on stream, it'll work perfectly, and it'll call me a liar, as all these things do. So this isn't correct anyway because of this bit at the bottom, but we'll continue along with the process. So I'd make sure maybe the floor piece is the one that is selected as it's on the ground and ready to use. Then I'd highlight everything else and then join it together. Look at that. That's where things flipped when I joined it. And I'm like, why? What's gone on here? Now, I'm guessing that I mainly do apply modifiers. Look at this. This has got a scale factor of -1. That is probably the cause of all of my misery.
Oh.
So I need to, and I'm going to, at this point in time, I'm going to go back to both of us while we discuss it. What I'm going to do is part of the process is exporting it. So one of the things that I will naturally do is go ahead and, in fact, if I open up another Blender scene and go to the draft scene, which is where I'm popping the draft assets for Yann, I've got a script in there that, here we go, it goes through and it basically makes sure everything's in the right place, exports it, comes back in. But what none of this has done, and what I potentially could do in script, I would need to test it, but it's to make sure that all of the objects that I've got selected or a part of a collection, all of them have a... what's the first thing we did? We made sure that everything was applied. Everything was converted to a mesh.
You want to apply all the modifiers. You want to apply the transforms.
That was the thing that I did not do. I'm pretty sure. I mean, we should test this rather than just speculate. So with everything else selected, what I should be able to do now is Control and A and apply. I don't want to apply all transform. No, I don't want to apply all transforms because I will get this error. So there's another thing to do here.
What?
So, well, it's a multi-user object. In order to speed things along,
I don't know what a multi-user object is. So
the same mesh data is being used elsewhere. So there's another instance of that particular mesh. That's why when we went into edit mode here and moved this, the other one's moved because they're the same mesh. So, I mean, this is a oh, nasty. This is quite an interesting issue because part of the problem that's been caused is actually due to the workflow that I'm doing. To speed things along, I've made sure I've used instances of things, and sorry I didn't have the screen sharing there because all of these arches are the same instance, so this one around the side is in fact the same mesh as this. If I'm in edit mode and I go and move something, it's nothing to do with a mirror modifier, it's actually the same bit of mesh, and because we're moving it relative to its origin, it will move elsewhere as well. Now interestingly, that bit over here, this one, is not part of that. and we can confirm that over in the object, no, on the mesh data.
Would
it might
that
be
explain why some of the materials are different?
yes. So these are all separate objects, as you can see.
Because that's the problem with this normal view, is that you can't see stuff like that.
No, I wasn't really focused on
Totally.
on the materials.
It's an interesting byproduct of the process. Like some of the internal pillars are a different color,
Which is funny.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we have this here. They're all separate mesh objects, all called cylinder. Now, one of the reasons, by the way, kind of making excuses right here as to why I'm not listening to my own advice about naming. One of the reasons why is because the end goal of this is to solidify it down.
Hello, Todd. Todd Makes Games seems to have gone full Mary Poppins on us, so I appreciate that. Hello, Governor.
Top of the morning to you. Yes. No, that's Irish, rather than London.
What are you doing?
I don't know. What?
What is this randomized acupuncture? Can you have random randopuncture?
So all of these are separate mesh objects, but because under the mesh data, we see this as corridor arches. The mesh data is named. That's good. This is corridor arches 003. It's got 3 users, which are these other ones here. So that's why this one wasn't updating when we were shifting around all of this one. Right. So we've got a couple.
What's the advantage of multi-user objects? I mean, I understand the advantage of instancing, but once it's placed like this, what's the disadvantage of separating them?
That's what we're going to do next. So there's the advantage to begin with was just the ability to minimize Blender instead of opening up the
Mikey's
other project.
Me.
So for instance, if we have a look, I'm hiding half this scene, aren't I? And that's the draft assets. I actually want the full assets. Let me open up those. Right. One of the advantages during construction. Okay, so during construction with this piece here, for instance, if we just focused on it and had a look at the modifiers that are applied. Oh, you want it this long. You can go ahead and make it as long as you need for the corridor that you're making and things like that. And because it's then reflected around elsewhere, it's the same mesh data being used. So if I come in and go, oh, I don't like the top of that. I really want there to be a bit of detailing here and here. I can do that, and it applies it to all of these straight away. So exactly right. But that's the benefit of a multi-user object. This tiny bit of mesh at the end is driving everything else, which is it makes it quicker to do something multiple times. And because we're not forcing geometry into one another, it works incredibly well. Now, if I open up the right blend file, so that's one of the problems that we got here. These are multi-mesh, multi-user objects. So we can't just apply the transforms. We need to make them unique first. I think that's the terminology. So under edit, under relations, make single user object and its data. Now the question is, has that applied it to every single one? I think it has. Then I believe if we go ahead and apply our transforms, bearing in mind the reason why transforms need to be applied is because if I join things, we end up with all of the transforms actually being applied at that point and things inverting.
Oh, is it because you selected it? It's like the back wall just went orange.
Yep. I was just demonstrating what happens if we don't apply our transforms. Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't suggest doing all transforms because that can shift things, but I'm just going to do it at the moment. Look at that. That's put this the wrong way. Oh, is applying the transforms going to cause us an issue? That's interesting. That's actually causing the issue. It is the applying of transforms. Oh my. That's got to be something that I've got to work out, because looking at this piece here, there's no way of telling apart from the fact that it's got the transform on it.
Well, here's a question for you. Right now, that back wall has 2 planes. We don't need 2 planes, so why don't we just get rid of the offending one?
It doesn't have 2 planes. It has just the one.
Well, when I imported this into Godot, it had two planes in the same place facing two different directions.
I don't know what to say. I probably made a big boo-boo when editing. Sending it through to you.
No, I'm not. Like,
yeah, there's definitely one plane there. Well, let's go through and just isolate the planes.
because a plane with two sides with two materials is not a plane.
That one's just a plane, and that one. Yeah, there's just the 4 planes there. I don't know why an extra one came through. It is possible. At one point, I was having issues with the planes. You know, I was mentioning earlier about I was selecting things by top down. I was selecting things, and it was missing things. It was missing things like the plane. And therefore, I had to drag extra ones in. I wonder whether I accidentally dragged, you know, the wrong thing in.
I don't think it was that, just because it was in exactly the same place and exactly the same size. I mean, maybe. But...
It would have been exactly the same place and size. I know that much.
While we're doing this, one that wasn't an export thing, but was an interesting issue, the curb. What would your solution for fixing the curb be?
This bit here.
Because I went into Blender, selected a bunch of faces, deleted them. Like,
okay, so my solution for the curb would be I would, because this is supposed to be reflected round there, so at some point an empty that had the right rotation on it didn't come across during part of the process. So if I can get this, so it should go around the corner with an empty, and then it should be mirrored as well over to the other side. Do we have... No, we don't quite have them back yet. Do I have enough undo levels?
Probably not.
Hopefully, yeah. Okay, so what I would do here is I'd reduce that to the appropriate number, which is actually 3 in this case, and then maybe a mirror modifier again around this object here. That'll put it over on the other side. And then, there's a couple of things that you could do. You could come in and duplicate it and move it around, or you could rotate it around and then mirror it. It really doesn't matter the way that you approach it, as long as it's accurate. And this is just my fault. At some point during copying stuff over, I've moved the reflective empty and caused myself much headache.
A question from Critic MB: you're using minus value in the Y scale. Can't
That's
you just
correct.
Use object mirror instead?
Object mirror. Not quite sure what you're talking about
like
here.
The modifier mirror.
Oh, the modifier. That's
well.
X.
If you go up to the object menu, you can mirror it there.
That would mirror the actual data itself, which isn't what I want to do because it doesn't give me the flexibility of... Let's say I wanted it over on this side as well, but there's already one there. If I just get rid of that, if I wanted the same pattern over on the other side, I could apply it very, very quickly. And using an objects mirror, we'll talk about this more in the course when we're making it, but using the actual object itself as its mirror point is reliant on its origin. And if you have a look at this, this is just this data here. So mirroring will only work around the object's origin, not around the rest of the scene like this. Which is why I've approached it this way. You could have been talking about this scale here, this minus Y here. That was to reflect it the other way. So we set it as 1. I genuinely don't know why it's at -1, because it doesn't matter. Oh, here's one that does need to be.
Your zoom on YouTube is not showing the full window.
Zoom on YouTube?
Yeah, I'm looking at the screen on YouTube.
Ah, yeah, it's zoomed in a little, isn't it? Hold on. There we go. Nice. So, missing me, but seeing stuff. So, yeah, that works with this one here. However, it wouldn't work with this one here. If I apply the scale on that, it flips around the other way. So, we need to go through the same process we went through before. So, we're selecting everything and we're applying the modifiers by converting everything to a mesh. I love that type. Right, then we need to make objects unique. So we're going to go to the object menu under relations, make single user. and apply it to the objects and the data. Now everything's its own user, so there shouldn't be any duplicates. However, there are some problems when we go and apply these transforms. Because when we go ahead and apply something with a positive transform, it should remain blue. If we do it to a negative transform, oh, that worked that time. Perfect. Have I fixed the problem?
I mean, does it count as fixing if you didn't know it was going to happen?
Maybe not. But okay, so this one's interesting. We've got this plane here that's somehow scaled negative y. So we could scale that 1 and it flips it round. That's the reason why when we're applying the transforms it's going wonky. But it's interesting. I wonder if there's a quick way of undoing my stupidity here. I mean, it's quite a tall order. Right? It's quite a tall order.
What is the keyboard shortcut for undo stupid? Is that control shift? Like
maybe. So yeah, reaching out to chat here. Do you know a way of applying a transform but not flipping normals? I don't.
My echo's back.
There we go. Echo gone.
We've been having such trouble with my audio settings and streaming.
That's why you disappeared before. I thought I was going to use that. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to go through and just bite the bullet on these assets and literally manually flip things. By the way, if you can see this red line running down here, that's a problem with how Blender renders things. It's really annoying. There's not actually bad geometry there. It just, I don't know, something to do with the zoom level. But it seems to show a red bit here that's not really in the way. So, yeah, I think I've made a big enough boo-boo here that I'm going to have to go in and manually flip these round. Which is okay, because I'm making archways for these.
I mean, the alternative, instead of using them as planes, you could just put a big old cube there.
Oh, you mean in this corner, right?
Yeah.
Then we would just have a top... I'd have to delete geometry, so whether or not...
It's delete geometry anyway, so...
Exactly, but I could flip... and completely lose it. Right, let's see what sort of chaos I've actually caused myself. So if I come in here and go ahead and apply the scale, that's basically what's causing the normals to flip around. And at least this time I can see that this plane here is going to be a problem. That face there is going to be a problem because I didn't reset the normals on that one. Yeah, I think as I've been building this up, I've not paid attention.
You can't just go in and say recalculate inside or recalculate outside because it has
yes,
no
idea. Actually, I can.
I tried that and it went horrifically wrong.
I can on some things. So this is actually a really important learning point, just in general. When you want to do something like Alt and N or under is it under this menu? I very rarely use the menu for this one. Faces have normals, don't they? So is it under here?
If you look under the menu, sad orc.
Here it is. Under mesh normals, recalculate outside. The way that it can calculate things on the outside is it needs to be a manifold mesh. So it needs to be a sealed mesh. So if you've got something like a plane, it cannot exist in real life. It's non-manifold. If you've got
pillars,
or some of the pillars. So if we go ahead and grab a yeah, it's a sad orc back again. If we go ahead and grab ourselves a cube, just shift it over here and focus on it for a moment. This is a manifold object. It's a sealed object. And so you can tell Blender, in here, Alt and N, recalculate inside. It's flipped all the normals to inside, recalculate outside. Now I'm going to do inside again, so it's all red, so demonstrating a problem that we have. Then I'm going to delete this top face. So we can see that all of the normals are facing inwards. And this might be fine if you were making a room or this was the actual inside of an object that you were modeling. But now that it doesn't know, it's not a solid object. It's got no concept of what outside is. So if we select it and press recalculate outside. Oh, well done for showing me right on that button. Maybe it still knows it's a cube. I don't know how it's working that one out. Let's move on swiftly. Classic.
So we're all going to pretend that worked exactly as done, and yeah, just give Mikey a round of applause for being right.
Thank you. So here, if we go alternate and recalculate outside, does that actually fix our problem? Cool, it does. So it called us both liars in this case.
Well, I mean, the mesh I was trying to recalculate outside was very different, right? It was the applied transform was very different.
That's interesting. It should not be able to know which way a plane is. That's very, very interesting. I mean, I'm glad this works because now I can just script all of that. Because that's fantastic.
What is the inside I'm seeing there?
Which bit?
The L-shaped inside. I'm pointing at the screen. The L-shaped inside red bit behind the arch.
This red bit here.
Yeah, what is that?
If we focus on it, it's the inside of this mesh.
Okay.
So when we were talking about optimization earlier, I knew that the only bit of geometry I actually needed was like this set of faces here.
Right.
Those lot running down, then it can be mirrored and then arrayed, and then the back bits could be copied again. So on the very, very original...
Well, the back could just be removed, to be honest.
No, it can't, because you can see behind it. This bit along the very top could probably be removed. All these bits at the very top.
Right, the back.
I think so. Yeah, that would probably be okay. But again, it's part of the optimization stage. Yeah. It's only at this point do we have that that geometry's realized it's real. In this particular instance, it's been made real geometry. Have we still got the rest of our scene? No. Hold on a sec. That's the one.
I was going to say, we've had some people join in a little late. At some point, we should show them what this looks like in world as well.
Yeah, totally. Just let me show the world here for a moment. So this one little piece that's being used and repeated over and over again is exactly what this bit behind is, right? It's that individual mesh used but the other way and offset a little bit to create exactly the same thing. And then I cut it down because you didn't need to see the back.
I mean, in fairness, I could foresee a version of this where you use those arches without a back wall as a pass-through.
Yes, potentially. I've played around with this particular shape quite a bit because this can also be just against the wall itself. So if I just hide this, we could have a wall that's just this structure instead. It doesn't have to have those arches in front of it. So lots of fun there. Yeah, I will launch Godot and show these. Yeah, good old Windows search. Good old Windows search. So whilst I peruse my file system for Godot, I will put our faces on. And if anybody's got any questions, especially about my confusion, I by the way, I do. Yeah, rather than just in general, it's no, that's not confusion. That's just a question. Yeah, it's really bizarre how, you know, I've been through this iteration process a few different times, and how I've obviously done something in a slightly different way, and it's really just shoved a spanner in the whole export process. Yeah. Yes. And it comes down the line and goes... What is going on? He's a real boy?
I exist.
I don't know what's going on with the audio. Is Yann back?
Hello.
Hopefully Yann's back.
Hopefully Yann's back. All right. How do you decide where to put the pivot points, says Munzer.
So great question, and the simple answer is it's very contextual. It'll just depend on what you're trying to do at the time. However, to actually give you a proper answer, don't rely on the pivot point being what you're reflecting about. Use something else as a pivot point.
Okay, apparently. Oh, I'm back. Never mind.
So yes, it does depend on what you're trying to do, but in order to decide on a pivot point, use an external pivot point if you're unsure. Because otherwise, what are we going to open a door around? Where you'd usually put maybe the pivot point at the bottom of the door, but that might not be a great place if you're trying to use an array modifier or a mirror modifier, because everything's going to be based around the origin of an object. So if you want full control over the origin of an object, use a different thing, an empty, for example, or another object to do reflectivity or whatever it is that you're doing. I'm just waiting for the Godot project to open up so we can show off how these assets are looking.
Drum roll. Okay. Here they come. And let's see if I still have noises.
You still do have noises. However, I've turned off the annoying robot voice. I know what's happening now. So last week, when I set it all up for your stream, I obviously made some changes that I didn't think about when it came to our stream.
Yep.
Oh dear.
I mean, I keep muting and unmuting myself because of the power washing outside. Like, I don't know if people can hear it. I certainly can. It's very headache inducing.
Oh, throne room. Doing. Now, there is a chance that the settings that I changed have been overwritten. So I might have to have a look at that. Because this looks like it's just one room rolling into another.
No, they've not been overwritten. Go back to your tiles. I'll show you. I could show you how to reset them.
That'll be over in the inspector, won't it? I can click the little boop, boop.
Yep.
So,
there you go.
Yeah, that's what I meant by I've overwritten the default setting.
The changes that you made have not been overwritten.
There we go.
By the way, the little shadow effect under the torches is completely coincidental. It's not a decal of an angel or a dragon or whatever you see. It's just the torch bracket.
I think it's the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, it looks like a...
Do you like the little volumetric fog body right in front of the door, by the way?
This guy here.
Just to give it a little bit of God ray.
Looks awesome. Can we use textures to define a God ray?
No. Well, yes, we could use a projector and a light.
Gotcha. Yes.
But right now we're just physically modeling it.
I want that. I want that room. So yes.
You have that room.
I want it now. So we've got fire that we have to walk through. And then we've got a couple of different rooms. We've got our throne room. I keep wanting to look up and down.
I know. I need to code that in. It's just not a priority just yet. So
it's also not a first-person game. It feels like Doom, right? Old school.
Yeah, it does. Like, I'm not going to worry too much about that until we get onto the character course, because this first course is all about generating this dungeon.
And you had a big aha moment with the code earlier on in the week.
Oh, yeah. I managed to reduce the... Okay, so there's a function that will create the layout of the dungeon, right? The algorithm that makes the corridors, and then it picks a certain percentage, a quarter of the tiles, and replaces them with a room. But the rooms don't have walls and doors built in. Those are added separately. So the script that adds the walls and doors. And I had what we had for Godot Getaway, which was, okay, if this is room type 0, then north is false, east is north is false, east is false, south is false, west is false. If this is room type 1, north is true and east is false, and it's binary, right? And like, surely I could use a bitwise operation here and just do this easily. Mikey, would you like to show off the bitwise operation?
Yes, you'll have to navigate to where it is, or help me navigate there.
Click on the wallmaker, on this wallmaker script.
Beep.
And then let's go into distraction free mode. And if you click on output at the bottom.
Trying. Hello.
I would mock Windows at this point, but Linux does this too. And now if you do Control / you can get rid of the sidebar.
Control A delete. Yep.
Okay.
Control slash.
Oh.
Control slash. Control
/
Control / I'm good at listening.
Okay, so we have defined a wall and a door. Currently, we're not using rare floors, so ignore that for now.
Have I deleted something here?
I don't believe so.
Okay, cool.
Go back. We have the size of the room. This is important because we're dealing with the coordinate in an abstract sense, but each room is 20 by 7 by 20. So if the coordinate is 105, we need to multiply it by the room size to actually move it to the right global coordinates. Okay, we have a list of positioned walls. The first one is on the start room because I don't want it to place a wall where the start room is. Then we're defining these constants. North is 1, east is 2, south is 4, west is 8. Binary, right? We're just going up in orders of magnitude by powers of 2. Okay. If we're going to make walls, we have 2 arguments coming in. What is the room type? This is just a simple integer between 0 and 15, which is a way of saying which walls are filled in. The north wall, the east wall, the south wall, the west wall. And then we have the coordinates. Okay, here's the fun part. Define the north wall. If the room type, bitwise and north, bitwise north is 1. In other words, if they both have the 1 bit, instantiate it as a wall. Otherwise, it's a door. And they do the same with the east, the south, and the west. This changed this from 145 lines of code to 70 odd. And I felt so pleased with myself.
And I know, obviously, a much better learning journey and a much more scalable code base. Because that's the thing. You can go through and have functional code that's a bit long in the tooth, but the moment you need to add something else in, if you need to modify several functions and add further code just because you've added something in, it's just not scalable.
Roderick says, how's working with Windows 11? Blissful. I'm not doing it.
I've had no issues with Windows 11. I mean, that's I am kind of techie, so that maybe I do have issues and I don't realize they're
Although
issues.
That's interesting because it's not usually that. Well, I guess Windows is more sort of rewards a more techie interface than something like an Apple Mac, which is very much like let's pull back and abstract it further. I'll be honest, I haven't worked with Windows 11 or
perhaps Roderick, you can expand your question. Is there anything specific about Windows that you're querying, whether or not it's a thing with Blender, whether it's a thing with Godot, gaming? I mean, one of the reasons to get Windows 11 would be to have DirectX 12, because I believe it's not available in its full flavored version with Windows 10 or something along those lines.
Proton seems to manage it okay, but
so there are many things. I mean, I used to work on Linux. I even ran on and wrote an Unreal course using Linux, and that was interesting because I remember it vividly because I prototyped on my laptop, which was Windows, and everything was working in terms of tessellation, so where you move the geometry based upon a texture rather than actually having real geometry there. It's generated at runtime. And I then moved over to the Linux machine. It turns out that the NVIDIA drivers did not support tessellation. So I then had to spend, as I said, 4 or 5 hours debugging and then realized, oh, it does work. But I can't teach it on Linux.
Yeah. Roderick's expansion, the existence of Windows 11 in your computer in general.
So I'm a bit platform agnostic, to be quite honest. I can hop between.
I am too, in the sense that you should use the platform that you
exactly.
Using.
And I've done a lot of work on my Mac, which is just set over there. no problems at all. It's a bit more quirky when it comes to audio interfaces. It's very, as Yann was alluding to, they're very, very prescribed. You will do things in this way. It's like, come on, Windows has got a volume mixer. If I don't want this application making noise, I should be able to turn it off. And that's a simple app download, and you've got that functionality back. But you shouldn't have to with a, with a fully featured set.
I mean that. I played a little bit with Windows 11, and it felt very unfamiliar. But to be honest, same thing happened when you went from Windows 3.1 to 95.
Yeah.
From 95 to Vista, and like that's expected, right?
The other thing I should allude to is that, so if you don't know, we've got quite a large household. There's 7 of us in the household. So there are basically 7 computers, not including any extra ones like servers, etc. So I'm in a position where I'm often sorting out problems on multiple machines at any one time during the week. And so them all being the same actually helps out with that. So I made sure that they might have all been Windows 10, but then when I upgraded to Windows 11, I just made sure they were all Windows 11, because I don't want to have to remember on this version of Windows the control panel says this, or it's under this submenu. It can get very confusing.
Now, I've just noticed the time, and I need to make some dinner in a minute. So we should move on to if there are any more questions, concerns.
Is it really that time already? It is.
It is. I will say that I enjoyed using Windows up to the point where I was very unlucky. There was a bug that hit like a small percentage of users, and I was one of them. Which deleted everything. Like it just deleted all the information on a drive. And I don't mean like, oh, you can't access it. I mean, it went and wiped the drive. And that was tough. And then it kept doing a bunch of updates without asking me if I wanted to do them, which is how this bug happened. And then it kept sharing information. I'm like, you know what? I might be done.
Yeah. That's one thing that it's the whole, you're giving Microsoft a lot of information when it comes to Windows. The telemetry, is that what they called it, where they collect data? And some people are just not comfortable with that. And that's, that's horse for courses at that point. And as Rotorix,
I mean, one of the main reasons
one of
the main reasons I went into, I preferred Windows in the first place, was it allowed me to make those choices. And when those choices started being made for me, and that starts having a real world impact. Like if I make a decision and lose all my data, that's on me. Right?
It works when you've got a more techie background. Like you're quite comfortable in Linux doing command line and that.
You could do things like, if I wanted to, I could go into Linux and remove the super user do command so that you never have to do that. I'm not going to do that because that's insane, but you could do, right?
But the counter argument there is someone reads that online, I'm fed up of doing that, and they've now got a completely open compromise system without the knowledge that that's a bad thing. So that's like the flip argument of maybe Apple being so locked down with it. Thank you, Rotorick. There's going to be quite a few more updates on the assets. One of the things
on the actual in-world implementation of it as well. Like it's very early days.
One of the things that Yann and I were playing around with and trying to sort out earlier was, I don't know whether you were here on the you've been here since the beginning, but for those who haven't, when we're walking through the level, it was quite obvious in Godot that there needs to be a ceiling of some description. There needs to be something up other than a flat surface.
Well, depending on what we do with the camera. Like if we keep the camera sort of up by 30 degrees and you never see the ceiling, then that's just extra geometry we don't need.
Yeah.
But in the angle we're at right now, the assets just don't look right.
No. It looks very Wolfenstein 3D-esque in terms of its feeling.
3D looked like that.
But that's the feeling I'm getting, like early days. And that's because of where we put the camera, yeah?
And because of the particle.
Yeah.
Thing.
I didn't do that nearly enough. Awesome. Well, it is time for us to wrap up this week. Next week will be a more carefree stream. We haven't decided quite whether it's a game analysis, a thingy analysis where you look at a particular thing within a game, gameplay mechanic, yep. Or it might just be us having a bit of a laugh, which is like normal, but
or it might be, I don't know, like a nap.
I mean, that's the thing, right? People do tune in to watch people sleep.
It's creepy, but sure. Yeah. Meanwhile, everyone, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Mikey, for the lovely breakdown of what happened.
You know, I've got to
Thank you,
look
neighbours'
for
dogs.
I've got to look for Firefox because yeah, you keep talking while I find it.
Okay. I hope you've enjoyed it. Certainly, we've been enjoying putting it all together, and I keep exporting everything and sending it to Mikey just so he gets a feel of what it looks like in World, because it really is different seeing these assets in Blender and seeing them in Godot. Once you put in the lighting and the materials and the volumetrics, it makes a huge difference.
Thank you, everybody. And it's calming. Why not? Yeah, that's about the sleepy stream, I presume. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this week. Let me try again. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this week. We'll see you next week. Bye!
Bye!
That's it!
That's it. That's it.